Did you ever think or realize what has gone into everything you use on your day-to-day basis? From your phone to the car you drive to school. Yeah. And even as something as basic as electricity. Telephones were not only a large factor in revolutionizing communication then, but even today as well, even with newer innovations in how we communicate to different people across the world. In an experimental call, the first words ever spoken through a telephone communication device was, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want you." This was spoken by the device's inventor, Alexander Graham Bell. His invention completely revolutionized the way people connected for miles, even continents away. The telegraph was now officially obsolete. Some say it was Thomas Edison who drew up the blueprints to this invention, but the man we still connect to the device today is Bell. Earlier developments of this device were thought of earlier, but Bell is responsible for introducing it to the world. With this device, society brought forth a new age in human history in the realm of the way we as humans find the need to stay connected. That problem was resolved with the device we still use today, the telephone. When one thinks of the inventions of the 19th century, this would have to be the biggest and possibly the most important of all. This invention went through many different trials in the earlier 19th century, but the man we connect to this illuminating invention to is none other than one of the greatest inventors of all time, Thomas Alva Edison. Edison revolutionized the world by creating things that would allow us to record sound, play sound, record a moving picture, and so much more. Did you know that Edison even came up with the very first talking doll from 1888 to 1890? Here's a real recording of Edison singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" in a high-pitched voice put in these dolls. About 1 month after the release of the doll, they were taken off shelves for obvious reasons. In the classic novel The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, published originally in 1906, they mention Edison's invention and how it plays a factor in that scenario in that era of when the story took place. As it mentions, a room lighted by electricity with new machines for filling lard cans at work in it. This quote shows how quickly this invention made its way into pop culture, being mentioned and commonly used only 27 years after its release. And even before it took off, it made its way into pop culture and everyday living almost instantly. Edison is probably one, or if not the titan of this era in technological advances, and without his invention, society would live in a dark place. It's his light bulb that metaphorically and literally illuminated the world, and brought forth a new era in technology, one we still live in as improvements of his original work and have been present in the 20th century all the way to today. It's him you can thank for almost all modern technology we use today. It's because of him this documentary is viewable. It's because of him and his incandescent light bulb that we live in a brighter and more efficient time in human history. Many people in America and across the world watch movies, and almost all of them do it for fun. But little do we notice, these movies average around 2 hours long on a 45 to 50 foot screen, and with high definition surround, the option for 3D, it can make these experiences unforgettable. But jump back about 120 years or so to when moving pictures just started to exist. In 1888, a French inventor named Louis Augustin Leprince designed and built his first camera, which he used to shoot the round gay garden scene and the Leeds Bridge street scene. Sadly, on September 16, 1890, Louis vanished on a train ride. Going back through their archives, the police found a picture of a drowned man in a lake, which was assumed to be him, but they weren't sure. In the same year as Louis's disappearance, William Kennedy, Lurie Dickson, and Thomas Edison built the first modern motion picture camera called the kinetoscope. The kinetoscope was a small generator connected to a series of pulleys that moved a gear. When you fed the strip to film into a small slot, the gear would grip the notches in the film and pull it through. The device had a peephole that the viewer would look through to see the film. Shortly after, they built the kinetograph, which was a device to record and capture the images they wanted to present in the kinetoscope. In 1893, Edison designed the first motion picture capture and viewing area of the kinetoscope named the Black Maria. In 1884, Charles Francis Jenkins created the phantoscope, the first movie projector. Then he presented a movie of a woman dancing to the Round of Richmond, Indiana. Later in 1895, he went and started to project some kinetograph films with his phantoscope in Georgia. Orville and Wilbur Wright were brothers who worked on designing and building an airplane that would safely fly. During 1900, they tried but were unsuccessful. They continued their efforts into 1901, experimenting with different shapes and sizes of airplanes. On December 14, 1903, they used a 12-horsepower engine to fly one of the planes, but it crashed because the engine stalled during takeoff. It took 3 days to make repairs. Once repaired, they tried again. It was on December 17, 1903, in front of 5 witnesses, that the airplane finally flew. It stayed in the air for 12 seconds and traveled 120 feet. By 1909, the Wright brothers were well established in constructing planes. The U.S. Army purchased a specially constructed plane, and the Wright Company was founded to produce and market their aircraft. Model T Ford was introduced to the public on October 1, 1908. The first Model T had a 20 horsepower 4-cylinder engine and had a top speed of 45 miles per hour. More than 15 million Model Ts were built and sold. The Model T was the first low-priced, mass-produced car with standard interchangeable parts. The Model T popularized in the left side steering column. The engine design, a single block with a removable cylinder head, became the industry standard. Henry Ford's initiation of the mass production of vehicles on the moving assembly line led to lower car prices and the $5 workday. Henry Ford called the Model T the universal car, a low-cost, reliable vehicle that could be maintained easily. It successfully traveled the poor roads of the era. Thanks to its 3-point suspension, the Model T came in 9 body styles, all on the same chassis. Lizzie was one of the most popular of the dozen nicknames for the Model T. The Model T's agile planetary transmission enabled novices to operate the gear. It was a forerunner of modern automatic transmission design. Vanadium steel, an alloy manufactured for the company at the direction of Henry Ford, gave the car great strength and durability without extra weight. In 1914, Ford with the 13,000 employees produced about 300,000 cars, while 299 other companies with 66,350 employees produced about 280,000 vehicles. A modest ceremony on May 26, 1927 marked the formal end of Model T production. Although we do not think much of skyscrapers much today, besides tall buildings in big cities, but back in the late 1800s and 1900s, it was a big deal because more people could live in more space in a more dense urban area. In 1885, the first skyscraper was built in Chicago, known as the Home Insurance Building. That meant that people would start building taller buildings to accumulate for increasing population in larger cities such as Chicago and New York. In 1902, the Flatiron Building was constructed, but due to the unusual shape of the building, many people thought it would blow over due to the wind there. But it would become one of the most recognizable buildings in the US. But in the book The Jungle, written by Upton Sinclair, Georges was picked up by a very young rich person who took him to his house, which was quite large, when Georges thought, "The young fellow must have made a mistake. It was inconceivable to him that any person could have lived in a home like a hotel or a city hall." That meant that people were starting to live in bigger buildings, and it was necessary to build skyscrapers in larger urban areas. This era shaped our lives as we know it today. Many of the inventions we did and didn't cover today have not only improved and convenienced our lives, but made a mold for our society today. Without these inventors and their inventions, who knows what the world would be like today?